Hello, Blake here. I'd like to discuss one of the possible futures that awaits our species. I'm talking, of course, about transhumanism, cybernetic enhancements, and societies of control. According to the leading transhumanist representative organization, Humanity Plus, otherwise known as the World Transhumanist Association, their aim is to advocate the ethical use of technology such as artificial intelligence to expand human capabilities. On their website's homepage, they also state that other technologies that could extend and expand human capabilities outside physiology include AI, robotics, and brain-computer integration, which form the domain of bionics, memory transfer, and could be used for developing whole-body prosthetics. Advocacy groups such as Humanity Plus, as well as associated leading public figures in the realm of broader futurism, such as Ray Kurzweil, Natasha Vita-More, and Nick Bostrom, are extremely optimistic about the remedial potential that artificial intelligence and biotechnology have for the future of humanity. Many have dedicated their lives and professional careers to studying and predicting advancements in their respective fields, with the hope of swaying the political philosophy surrounding the topic of transhumanism, thereby opening people's eyes to the potential of these fields. As a fan of futurism and being an avid consumer of cyberpunk media, I'm personally no stranger to the warm and fuzzy feeling that can arise as aspiration in the person witnessing reality-bending promises of immortality and cybernetic integration. Trust me on this, I think it's cool as f***. But with such a broad range of emerging technologies at our fingertips, how do we start to unpack this topic? I'm going to keep it simple and focus on brain-computer interfaces and the potential ramifications of our accelerating integration with technologies such as the internet. So that we have a solid definition of terms, it's worth stating that the transhuman differs from pop culture representations of cyborgs. To the transhumanist, the portrayal of robot people lacks the nuance and complexity of the hypothesized transhuman. In their paper, The Transhumanist Manifesto, Natasha Vita-More, PhD, explores these differences, stating, "A cyborg is positioned as an endpoint for the integration of human, machine, and computer. However, the transhuman is a continuous human evolution. This evolution includes a confluence of organic human, technological advances in AI, nanomedicine, and gene therapies that mitigate disease, the devices and prosthetics that enhance biology and append biology, as well as an awareness of personal identity as a transformative, telematic, and expanded agency that expands through new tech communication systems." This vision of a human free from the mortal constraints of traditional biology is what Anders Sandberg refers to as morphological freedom. This concept can be understood as an ethical system, similar to our existing proclamation of human rights. In short, if I want to grow a third arm, that's none of your goddamn business. While this vision of utopian liberation via transhuman development is well formed and grounded in scientific theory, it relies on the emergence of these technologies in a chronology and environment that ignores the human element. Society, politics, and capitalism are currently here, and their influence over the spread, access, and utilization of emerging technologies knows almost no bounds. It's here that I need to put the cool robot concepts on hold for a second and explore what it means when I say, we live in a society. In socio-political terms, we can think of society in a few ways. In 1975, unwilling structuralist and postmodernist philosopher Michel Foucault wrote his book Discipline and Punish: The Birth of the Prison. In it, he postulated his theories surrounding the shift in power dynamics through pre- and post-industrial revolution Europe. To Foucault, the individual serf living underneath a lordship or king was living in a society of sovereignty. All people living in this society were bound to perform duties, and the will of the king was absolute. Anybody who defied the king was sentenced to public death. We can see here a very direct mode of authority that is explicit in its chain of command. The Industrial Revolution, however, brought with it new social structures and introduced what Foucault calls disciplinary societies. The advent of mass production brought factories to the forefront of human activity, while also introducing more complex legal and education systems, such as banks, integrated taxation, schools, and police. No longer were people beholden to the will of the king. Freedom at last, right? Well, predictably, no. Within these new institutions, people are controlled by the rules of each and expected to adhere to socially accepted behavioral obligations, essentially creating an endless series of miniature kingdoms for the individual to perpetually assimilate within. It's here that I need to introduce another French philosopher, Gilles Deleuze. Deleuze responded directly to Foucault in the form of an essay titled Postscript on the Societies of Control. In it, Deleuze summarized one primary characteristic of these types of societies by referring to the physical spaces that we inhabit as vast spaces of enclosure. The individual never ceases passing from one closed environment to another, each having its own laws. First, the family, then the school, then the factory, from time to time the hospital, possibly the prison, the preeminent instance of the enclosed environment. Deleuze created a distinction between these enclosures and what he calls controls. Enclosures are molds, distinct castings, but controls are a modulation. The key word here is modulation. What Deleuze is stating when he says this is that the behavior of our species is being modulated or changed by subconscious conditioning to the ever-present expectations and rules of each social institution we inhabit. When you're at work, you're on your best behavior and serve the customer. When you're at school, you act like a good student and willing subordinate. When you're in public, you act like a good citizen, or the police will say, very naughty. Deleuze further implies the existence of these controls in current society, stating, the conception of a control mechanism, giving the position of any element within an open environment at any given instant, whether animal in a reserve or human in a corporation, as with an electric collar, is not necessarily one of science fiction. He describes a city where one would be able to leave one's apartment, one's street, one's neighborhood, thanks to one's individual electronic card that raises a given barrier. But the card could just as easily be rejected on a given day or between certain hours. What counts is not the barrier, but the computer that tracks each person's position and effects a universal modulation. Sound familiar? This essay was written in 1990, well before smartphones, digital personal banking, certain countries' social credit systems, facial recognition, data capitalism, and data surveillance. This is where the rapid emergence of technological integration into society and governance rears its head. Technological innovations have already been co-opted and merged with the disciplinary enclosures of society. What you say on social media can and will get you fired from your job. If you, a student, post nice photos while on a date, Centrelink will autonomously data match you both and issue a robo-debt, financially crippling you for apparent non-conformity to their enclosure's rules. In other words, the previously separate borders of these disciplinary enclosures have now blurred. Your behaviors in most situations are now subconsciously being controlled without any unifying body or king to confront should we decide that we don't like it. Furthermore, the way social capital is perceived and spread has accelerated. Hashtags, advertising, analytic tracking, and algorithmic homogenization of interest through social media platforms. All of this has created invisible systems of control from which you cannot escape. If you want to succeed in your career, you had better have a LinkedIn profile that mirrors the will of the wire curtain. If you want to siphon enough money from the advertising pit to not die, you will alter your behavior, haircut, clothes, and interests to achieve this end. It is here that the imago of the transhuman may be found. If transhumanism is a continuous human evolution, as Natasha Vita-Moore puts it, then perhaps it may be prudent to take into consideration the systems of control that will certainly not relinquish their grasp of the organic human's fragile potato psyche without a fight. Thanks for watching. Please delete your Facebook apps.